of Kent is
BBC Radio Kent.
I'm going to introduce you now to a school teacher. He's also a lecturer at Canterbury Christ Church University, former radio presenter as well, which gets a big thumbs up from me. And now an author. Yes, welcome to the show, Dr. Phillip O'Connor, whose book Safely Through the Broken Pieces, Focus on What You Have Left, Not What You Have Lost, is out now. Philip, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Phil. Good morning to you. Happy New Year, and to our listeners as well.
Happy New Year to you as well. I was tipped off about your book by Casey, who works there as well, Casey Haven. He's one of your former pupils. He says, Mr. O'Connor, he always used to stop us in the corridors and ask us to name some of the good pieces of advice that he's given in class.
Yes, they are referred to as wise sayings.
Must be great, though, to know that there's still pupils out there, some 10, 15, 20 years after you've taught them, who still remember you. You're a memorable character.
I tell you, teaching, it is an absolutely fantastic ministry and an opportunity to make such an impact on the lives of so many. In fact, I'm at this school just going 18 years, but I've been in education for nearly 40 years across 3 countries, so what an opportunity.
Yeah, and you put a lot of that into your book as well. It's a great piece of advice in the title. You're taking inspiration from the biblical story of St. Paul being shipwrecked in Malta.
Indeed, on his way to defend his faith. And it's just tremendous to know that although he met such a problem on the sea, the raging sea, and being shipwrecked, that he was able to remain calm and to have that illumination from God in the midst of all of that. And one of the things that really stood out for me is that he could remain so calm and to speak words of advice to others while they were in distress. But at the end of the day, the subtopic really sums it up well. Focus on what you have left, not so much on what you have lost, as they use the broken pieces of the ship to reach the safety.
Yes, and that's great advice for your life as well. Don't dwell on what's gone. It's very unlikely you can ever change that. The future, well, that's still open to you. The main point that you control is what's going on now, and you've got to focus on that.
Indeed. So when life rains down these torrents of perceived unfairness, leaving us in a storm of, say, splintered dreams, it's reassuring to know that we can make it safely through unbroken pieces. And we, as you correctly said, have to focus a powerful lens on the vicissitudes of life as we grapple with common human experiences, of struggle, of disappointment, hurts, pains, rejection, betrayal, loss, death, and all of that. We can learn to turn our crosses into crowns, or stumbling blocks into stepping stones, impediments into implements, obstacles into opportunities, and our messes into messages, our models into miracles, our trials into triumphs, and our tests as testimonies.
It sounds like you've written a blueprint for living life, Philip.
Well, I tell you what, by God's grace, we have our own story. And one of the things I did point out in the book is that we all have our stories. And whatever we have been through in life, we should really try to make life make us better, not bitter. As we go through these rough times, we allow the broken dreams, the shattered, splintered bits of life to make us better, not to prevent us from pursuing the opportunities and the destiny and the purpose of God in our lives. And as we seek to develop an understanding of what it means to be broken but not be bitter, and not be discarded or to deem ourselves unusable by virtue of the things we have suffered in life. As we think of the pandemic, as we think of the war in Ukraine, as we think of the problems in the NHS and all the strikes going on by the different sectors today, and all that's going on in the world today, there's so much reason for us to be despondent and to be hurting, and we are, because the price of living, the inflation, and all that's going on. But we can use what we have left and focus on that, and not so much on the hurts and pains that we have suffered.
Yeah, there's only so much you control. Now, a lot of authors that we've spoken to over the years, they say they've had a real calling to write the book? Is it something that's just been mulling around your head for years that you feel just had to be written down and then put out there for the rest of the world to see?
Oh, Phil, I tell you, yes, there's an element of that. But, this is an inspired word that I've gotten. And in fact, this book was birthed out of a sermon I preached of the same name, Safely Through Unbroken Pieces. And this sermon was delivered actually here at Willsboro Baptist Church in Ashford, and then of course at Community Church in London, Community Church of God, and in Jamaica, Ulster Memorial Church, and also in the Cayman Islands at the Bodden Town Church of God. So, having preached this sermon in 3 countries, many times, I just felt this urge, especially so at the start of the pandemic. And it was during the first lockdown that I got this strong word. And my wife really said to me that this word can be a blessing to people. So quick shout out to my wife, Rona. But she said, this will be a blessing to people, to inspire, to motivate, to challenge, to empower, and to encourage others. Because we all have a story, I said before, Phil, and we're all going through very tough, challenging times personally. We're going through tough time, maybe spiritually, as you seek. And the book is written for those of faith and of none. And there's something there for everyone to encourage us, to build us up, to challenge us, to empower us, to move on to the next level. And we all, as I said before, have suffered hurts and pains and disappointment and loss. And sincere condolences to those who may have lost their jobs, or have been made redundant or furloughed, or those even sadly so who have lost loved one during the pandemic. I think this is a word of encouragement, not to minimize the pain, but to really go through the process of grief, from anger and depression and bargaining through to closure, which is not our destination, but closure as a process.
Everybody needs a champion, don't they? And you're providing that within your book. And you're certainly giving a lot of guidance, because we've all had so much to take on over the last couple of years. Things that, in a way, people haven't had to deal with since the turn of the 20th century. The last pandemic, series of wars. It's similar to that level of social upheaval that I suppose was last seen in the Second World War.
And this generation will certainly have this to talk about in like manner to the Second World War, as you have mentioned. And I'm telling you that people are really hurting. People's lives have been turned upside down. And one of the things about the Apostle Paul, which I did bring out, was that we suffer in life sometimes as a result of nothing we have done wrong. And that is a hard thing when we have to put out some fires we didn't start. and but what I'm saying is we can still pick up the broken pieces, the shattered dreams, the splintered dreams. I have ideas for another book called The Death of a Dream. And when we look at some of the things that have happened to our lives and in our lives that have not happened or could have happened, that might have happened, that needed to have happened, and all the hurts, the pains, the disappointments that we face, how do we deal with them? And I tell you this, that we're able to grieve the death of our dreams. Yes, we have lost loved ones. Yes, we have lost a relationship. Yes, we have lost our job. We put all into it. But something, at some point we may have to go and reskill. We may have to retrain, or take the transferable skills from what we have to move on to something else, or to reinvent ourselves in another way. But the important thing is to pick up the broken pieces of what we have left and use those to victory and success. We see that the Apostle Paul, when he landed on the coast of Malta, that he was bitten by a venomous snake, and the Bible said he shook it off in the fire. And it's quite interesting that some of the things that affect us and hurt us badly in life, we can shake them off and move on. Take some time and a process with help and support from others, but we're able to shake off some things and to move on to victory and purpose in our lives.
Yeah, very important. If something bad happens, maybe dwell on the good things that have happened as a result of that bad thing happening. It's a way of positively dealing with the problem.
That's all what it is about. Just pick up the positive bit and run with that. I tell you this, when the ship crashed off the coast of Malta where two seas met, that was not the destination, but it was towards the final destination. And I tell you this, when the centurion said to Paul and the other, those who can swim, swim for sure. Others grab a piece of plank from the ship, but others grab the broken pieces. And the inspiration came just from that bit. Grab the broken pieces. And what we're saying is that whatever life hands you, run with that. It may not be fair. But you grab that and you run with it and try to make the best of life from what you have.
Dr. Phillip
And on your
O'Connor.
radio.
The Sounds of Kent is
BBC Radio Kent.
Excellent advice.